It started with a whisper in the dark. The Earth Defense Network had detected strange movements in deep orbit, but no one paid attention. People were too busy with their lives. News of alien invasions had come and gone in the past, always proven false or exaggerated. But this time, the silence that followed was real and dangerous. Jaron was a mechanic from New Detroit. He worked night shifts fixing drones and barely got enough sleep. He had no family, no pets, and no idea that his life was about to change forever. One evening, he returned from work and collapsed on his bed, exhausted. The room was quiet, his old fan spinning in the corner, and sleep came fast like it always did. What he didn't know was that hours earlier, a covert operation had dropped something or someone into his apartment. Not through the front door, not through the window, but straight through the dimensional barrier. A pulse of unseen energy passed through the air, silent and invisible. And suddenly, he was no longer alone. The girl wasn't human. Her blue hair glowed in the dark. Her ears twitched like a cat's, and her tail flicked with quiet curiosity. She looked at the sleeping man beside her with glowing violet eyes. She tilted her head, scanning his face, his body, his breathing. Then she smiled, sharp teeth flashing under the moonlight coming through the window. She wasn't just an alien. She was part of a race bred for war. She had been genetically engineered, mentally trained, and emotionally erased for battle. But something happened on her last mission. Something broke inside her. Her commanders called it a malfunction. The medics called it corruption. She called it freedom. Jaron shifted in his sleep and turned to his side, muttering something about coolant levels. The girl leaned closer, her fingers gently brushing the blanket. She had been told to observe him, test him, and report back when he woke. But now that she was here, looking at him, she didn't want to follow the plan. She didn't want to go back. The Galactic War had started without warning. An unknown virus had spread across the fleets of the Ekral Dominion, turning their ice ships rogue. Earth was caught in the middle, chosen not for its power but for its location. The Council needed a place to test new diplomatic technology, and Earth was perfect because no one expected humans to matter. But humans were unpredictable. That's what the girl had been told during training. She had never met one before today. Her knowledge came from files, recordings, and war simulations. And yet, the man lying beside her didn't match any of the data. He looked soft, weak, and warm, but there was something else too. Something she couldn't name. As the hours passed, she sat quietly beside him, tail wrapped around her legs. She touched his forehead once, just to feel his temperature. His skin was different from hers. Less dense, but pulsing with energy. She wondered how such creatures had survived on a chaotic planet like Earth. Maybe that's what made them strong. In a different way, when Jaron finally stirred awake, the room was still dark, but he could sense something was off. He blinked and turned his head, and then he saw her. Blue hair, glowing skin, those sharp eyes watching him without blinking. He froze, mouth open, mind racing to make sense of the image in front of him. "Don't scream," she said in perfect English, though her voice had an echo, like it was coming from both her mouth and her mind. "You've been chosen. And now, you must lock in." Jaron stared at her, still half asleep, unsure if this was a dream, a prank, or something much worse. "What?" he whispered, voice cracked. "Lock in? What does that mean?" She smiled again, leaning closer until their noses almost touched. "It means your life is no longer just yours. You're bonded now. They slipped me into your world while you slept. You are now my anchor, my proof, and my way out. We must complete the lock or we both die." He sat up quickly, heart pounding. "Wait, what do you mean die?" She didn't flinch. "Our bond has started. You touched me when you turned in your sleep. That was enough. I can't return to my world unless the lock is complete. And if I fail, both our cores will collapse. That is the law. Jaren looked around the room like someone might jump out and yell surprise. Is this some kind of alien reality show? Is this a joke? She slowly shook her head. No joke, no show. This is real. And now that the process is started, there's no turning back. You're part of something much bigger than you understand. Jaren stared at her, struggling to breathe properly. Every muscle in his body told him to run. But he was still sitting in his own bed, inside his own apartment. Nothing made sense, and yet everything felt real. The alien girl with glowing blue hair did not blink. Her tail moved slightly as she sat on her knees. The way she looked at him wasn't threatening, but it wasn't soft either. It was sharp, focused, as if she had been trained to read everything he did. Jaren slowly pulled the blanket over his chest like that would protect him. You're bonded to me now, she said again, her voice calm. That's what lock-in means. Your energy fused with mine during sleep. It's not by chance. It was arranged by the people who control the galactic borders. Jaren held up both hands, confused. Wait, whoa, back up. Arranged by who? What? People? I didn't agree to any of this. I was just sleeping. The girl's expression didn't change. You didn't need to agree. Your planet is not recognized under formal consent laws. But you were marked as a candidate. He stood up from the bed and backed away. Candidate for what? I'm not a soldier. I'm not a scientist. I fix junkbots. I'm not special. She stood too, rising with smooth grace. Her feet made no sound on the floor. You're human. That's enough. Your kind is known for something we don't have. Unpredictability, adaptability, emotional density. These traits are needed to survive the lock-in process. Jaren shook his head. That's insane. I'm just a guy who eats microwave noodles and watches old movies. What do you even need me for? She stepped closer, but slowly. Because I broke away from them. And if I don't bond to someone outside the network, they'll erase me. You are the last thread holding me in this existence. There was silence in the room, except for the distant hum of a passing patrol drone outside the window. The wind outside carried faint sirens from the city, like a reminder that Earth was still spinning, still normal. Even as something impossible was happening inside his room, the girl raised one hand and pointed to her neck. There was a faint glow. Under her skin, a triangle of light pulsing like a heartbeat. This is my anchor core. Without connection, it collapses. If it collapses, I dissolve. And because your energy touched it, your own heartbeat is now linked to mine. Jaren wanted to laugh, but his mouth was too dry. He walked to the corner of the room and picked up his phone. It was dead. No signal, no light, no response. He checked the power line, but it was still plugged in. She had done something to the electronics. I blocked outgoing communication, she confirmed without being asked. If the signal leaks, they will find us faster. You have to decide what happens next, but you don't have much time. He sat back down slowly. Okay, so let's say I believe you. What does this lock-in actually do to me? What changes? She crouched beside him and looked him in the eyes. You will gain some of my instincts. You will feel me even when I am not near. And if danger comes, your reactions will become faster than human limits. But in return, I will feel your emotions, your thoughts, your fear. Jaren blinked. You're saying I'll be faster? Stronger? She nodded. Only when needed. But there is a price. You will no longer feel alone, ever again. Even your dreams will no longer be private. This is not a one-way bond. He looked down at his hands. They felt the same. But something deep inside felt slightly off, like a quiet vibration in his bones. He hadn't noticed it before, but now it pulsed with every breath. Is that you inside me already? He asked. Yes, she replied simply. There was another pause. She didn't speak again. She only watched him, letting the weight of the truth sink in. He had been alone for years, kept his head down, and avoided anything strange. But now the strangest thing in the universe had walked into his life while he was asleep and bonded to him. Without asking, he sighed and rubbed his face. So what? Now? She stood tall again and looked toward the window. Now we run. Because the people who want to kill me will come through walls, gravity, or even time to find us. And when they do, you'll need to be ready to fight. Jaren barely had time to grab his jacket before the lights in the room flickered. The girl moved like lightning, dragging him away from the window and pulling him toward the hallway. The air changed in an instant. It felt heavier, thicker, like something had shifted in the atmosphere. What's happening? Jaren asked, stumbling to keep up. She didn't turn around. They found us. The signal lock was delayed, but now it's caught up. I can feel the trace net tightening around this location. We have less than 2 minutes. They reached the stairwell, and she jumped over the railing with no fear. He followed more carefully, running down the stairs while his heart pounded in his chest. The lights above sparked one by one as they descended. The building itself seemed to protest their escape. When they reached the bottom floor, Jaren pushed through the exit door into the alley behind the building. The cold night air hit his face hard. The city was quiet, but something felt off. The street lamps nearby were dim, flickering unnaturally. That's when he saw the dark shape in the sky. It hovered above the neighborhood like a silent predator. Sleek, triangular, and pulsing with blue energy along its edges. It didn't make a sound, but the pressure in Jaren's ears told him it was real. He had never seen a ship like that before. It didn't look like human technology. The girl pulled him behind a dumpster and placed one hand on his chest. He felt her energy surge through him like a wave. Stay still. I'm going to mask your presence. Don't speak. Don't even think about fear. It will amplify your signal. Jaren tried to stay calm, but his thoughts were a mess. He felt her heartbeat through his skin. It was fast but steady. She wasn't scared, she was focused. Her glowing fingers traced a symbol into the air that vanished before his eyes. He couldn't understand how it worked, but it felt like a barrier had wrapped around them. The ship scanned the area with a soft hum. A beam of light swept the alley and paused. Near their position, Jaren stopped breathing. The girl squeezed his hand tightly. Her other hand held something close to her side. It looked like a blade made of glass, but it shimmered as if alive. The beam moved on. The ship slowly drifted away, disappearing behind the neighboring buildings. Only when it was gone did the girl release her grip. Jaren let out a breath he didn't realize he was holding. His legs felt weak, but he didn't fall. That was a scout, she said. They won't stop with just one. We have to reach a shielded zone. I know a place under the old fusion plant. It's not perfect, but it will buy us time to think. He nodded quickly. Okay, lead the way. They moved down the alley, sticking to the shadows. The streets were empty. Every building looked like it was holding its breath. The city's noise had vanished. No cars, no voices. Only the distant hum of danger. As they ran, Jaren noticed how the bond was affecting him. He could hear the shift in her breathing. He felt her alertness ripple across his nerves. When she paused to listen, he found himself doing the same without thinking. It was like their instincts were beginning to sync. They reached a locked gate, and she simply touched it. The metal melted silently, allowing them through. Jaren stared at the spot where her hand had been. How did you do that? She kept walking. Anchor bond. Your energy amplifies mine. I couldn't have done that alone. A few blocks later, they arrived at the old plant. It had been abandoned for years. Rust covered the walls. The fence had fallen in places. But the girl knew where to go. She led him to a narrow tunnel under the side of the building. Inside, the darkness swallowed them quickly. She activated a small light on her wrist. It cast a soft blue glow on the damp walls. This is a forgotten corridor. Old maintenance. Shaft. I used it once during an extraction mission. They won't look here right away. Jaren leaned against the wall, breathing heavily. Okay. I'm not sure how long I can keep up. I'm not a soldier. She turned to face him. You don't have to be. You just need to stay alive. That's enough for now. Asterisk inside the narrow shaft. Their footsteps echoed faintly. The walls were damp and rusted, but it was safe for now. Jaren followed closely behind her, watching her blue tail sway with each step. He still wasn't used to this, but something in his gut told him she knew exactly where she was going. The girl tapped the wall at certain points. Each time she touched it, a small patch glowed faintly and then faded. It looked like some kind of alien security check. Jaren didn't ask questions. He simply followed, knowing that one wrong move could get them both killed. She stopped near a broken panel and crouched. Pulling back some wires, she revealed a hidden passage in the floor. It looked like a service chute, old and unused. This leads to the lower level. It's where I first learned about your planet during infiltration training. We'll be safe. Down there for a while. Jaren hesitated at the edge, then climbed in after her. The slide was rough and cold, and he landed hard. She landed beside him in perfect balance. The chamber they entered was wide and dark, lit only by the soft blue pulse from her wrist device. Metal crates and dust surrounded them. He sat on one of the crates and caught his breath. Okay, so what now? Do we just hide until they give up? She shook her head. They won't stop. The moment I broke protocol and touched a human, they marked me for disposal. You being alive now breaks 3 galactic codes. Jaren rubbed his temples. So we're both fugitives now. Fantastic. She nodded. Yes, but if we survive long enough, there is one place that might protect us. A sector beyond their jurisdiction. But getting there will require something more from you. A second stage of lock-in. He looked at her nervously. What does that mean? She stepped closer, her glowing eyes reflecting off the walls. The initial bond was passive. It linked our life signals. The second stage unlocks shared memory and partial control. You'll be able to see what I've seen. But I'll also be inside your head when danger comes, he frowned. That sounds invasive. She nodded again. It is, but it will save your life. When they find us next time, there won't be time to talk. You'll need my reflexes, my combat data, my instincts. Otherwise, you'll die before your body even understands it's under attack. Jaren stood and walked a few paces, kicking a small can out of his way. I didn't ask for any of this. I was just sleeping. I didn't even know aliens were real yesterday. Now I'm in a tunnel with a war-bred alien girl and talking about mind fusion. She stepped behind him and placed a hand on his shoulder. You didn't ask, but you were chosen. Not by luck, but because you're exactly the kind of chaos they can't predict. And that's why you're dangerous to them. He turned around slowly. Her face was calm but serious. So what do I have to do? She reached into her coat and pulled out a thin silver device shaped like a coin. Place this on your neck. It will begin the second phase. There may be pain. Your memories may shift slightly, but you will survive it. And you will be faster. Stronger, not forever. Only when I push it through you. Jaren stared at the device. It was small and looked harmless, but something about it made his skin crawl. He hesitated, then took it in his hand. His fingers trembled slightly. Okay, let's just get it over with. He pressed it to his neck. The moment it touched his skin, it burned. Not with fire, but like lightning crawling under his flesh. His knees gave out. She caught him before he hit the ground. His eyes rolled back and images flashed behind his eyelids. Battles, stars, screams. A child crying in a ruined corridor. Her memories, the pain faded as quickly as it came. He gasped for air, and she helped him sit up. His hands shook, but his eyes were different. He saw more clearly, felt more aware. His chest rose and fell. but his heartbeat had changed. It matched hers now, beat for beat. "You survived," she said softly. He nodded slowly, still catching his breath. "I saw what you saw, the things you did, the things they made you do." She looked away, ears lowering. "Now you understand why I ran." Jaren stood again, more steady this time. "Then let's make sure they never drag you back." Jaren sat quietly as the cold from the metal floor seeped into his skin. His body was still trembling slightly, not from fear anymore, but from the strange power now buzzing through him. Every heartbeat echoed louder, every breath felt deeper, and every sound in the tunnel came sharper. The girl sat across from him, back straight, eyes steady. She hadn't spoken in several minutes. She seemed to be waiting for something. Maybe she was giving him space, or maybe she was observing how the bond had affected him. Either way, she watched in silence. He finally looked up. "I can still feel you, even though you're not touching me." She nodded slowly. "That's normal. The second stage makes the connection permanent until death. You'll feel me wherever you go. And I'll feel you." Jaren looked around the dark chamber. "So what now? We just hide here forever?" She shook her head. "No, now we move. The bond makes us stronger, but we're still hunted. They'll sweep every district. If we stay still, they'll corner us. If we keep moving, we have a chance." Stood and walked toward a small hatch at the far end of the room. Jaren followed her without hesitation. Something inside him had changed. His fear hadn't disappeared, but it was quieter now, controlled. He felt like part of her energy had taken root in his chest. She opened the hatch and led him into a tight underground corridor filled with old wires and broken lights. These tunnels connect across the industrial zones. They were once used by engineers during the city's expansion. Now they're forgotten. But I remember the path. As they walked, Jaren noticed more strange things. He could see clearer. In the dark now, he could feel when her mood shifted even if she said nothing. When she slowed, he instinctively slowed too. It was like his senses were merging with hers, piece by piece. After an hour of walking, they reached a sealed maintenance door. She placed her hand on the panel, and it buzzed softly. The lock disengaged, and the door slid open. Behind it was an old subway platform, covered in dust and debris. But more importantly, it was empty. "This used to be a civilian escape route," she explained. "Before they closed it during a panic attack drill. No cameras, no sensors. We'll rest here before we plan our next move." Jaren sat on an overturned crate while she examined the ceiling for power conduits. "You know this place better than most humans," he said. She nodded. "That's because I trained here. Earth was one of my assigned targets. I memorized every exit, every alley, every weak point. I never thought I'd use that knowledge to survive alongside one of you." He smiled faintly. "Funny how things turn out." She didn't smile back, but her ears twitched. It was the first sign that told him she wasn't as cold as she tried to be. Suddenly, Jaren's pulse sped up. Not from fear, but from something else. A sharp feeling. In the back of his mind, he stood quickly. "Someone's coming," he whispered. She turned sharply. "How do you know?" He pointed to his chest. "I don't know how, but I can feel it. Pressure. Like the air changed." She activated her scanning lens and looked toward the entrance tunnel. "You're right. Small squad. No drones. Walking formation. That's a capture unit. They want me alive. They haven't seen us yet. We can take them by surprise if we move now." She handed Jaren a thin metal rod. It lit up with a faint white edge. "This is not a weapon, it's a shield. If they fire energy rounds, block them with this. Let me do the attacking. You defend. If I go down, you run." Jaren gripped the rod tightly. "I'm not leaving you behind." She paused for a second, staring at him. "Don't say that unless you mean it. Because I'll hold you to it." The moment passed, and the air filled with tension. Jaren crouched low behind her rusted beam. She moved like a shadow across the debris, silent and fast. The enemy squad entered the platform from the tunnel. 4 of them, all wearing dark armor and visors. They didn't speak. She struck first. Her blade flashed in the darkness, cutting through 2 before they had a chance to aim. Jaren raised the shield as one fired at him. The impact hit hard, but the shield absorbed it. His arm burned, but he stayed standing. The last soldier turned to run, but Jaren moved faster than he thought possible. His legs carried him forward, and he slammed the shield into the attacker's chest, knocking them out cold. Silence returned to the station. The girl stood over the fallen with a steady breath. You reacted on instinct. That means the bond is stabilizing. Jaren looked down at his hands, surprised by what he'd just done. I didn't even think. I just moved. She placed a hand on his shoulder. That's exactly what you needed to do. The platform grew quiet again. Only the hum of broken lights and the sound of Jaren's breath filled the space. His arms trembled slightly, but he didn't let go of the shield. The girl stood nearby, checking the fallen soldier's equipment. She picked up a small cum device and crushed it in her hand. They didn't have time to call for backup. That gives us about 7 minutes before another patrol starts looking for them. Jaren leaned against a wall, wiping sweat from his forehead. I didn't think I could do that. I've never hit anyone in my life. And now I just took down a soldier with a glowing stick. She gave him a quick nod. Your reaction time is increasing. The connection is sinking deeper than expected. That means your instincts are starting to blend with mine. It won't make you a killer, but it will make you harder to kill. He looked at the unconscious soldier on the floor. Still breathing? She checked and confirmed with a nod. Yes. You didn't hit to kill. You hit to survive. That matters. It means you're still you. She pulled him back to the edge of the shadows. We can't stay here anymore. They'll scan this area soon. There's another place, deeper underground. An old testing site beneath the mag rail tracks. It's shielded from most sensors. I used it once as a relay base. Jaren followed as she moved through a narrow hallway leading away from the platform. His breathing had returned to normal, but something in him had changed. He could feel her emotions even before she spoke. He didn't know how, but her worry had become his too. The path grew darker, but his eyes adjusted without needing a light. He could see the shifting pressure in the air, the small vibrations on the floor, and the subtle hum of technology far above. All of it felt like part of him now. After a few turns, they entered a chamber that looked like a control room. Broken screens lined the walls, and dusty chairs sat under thick cables. The girl walked to the center and placed her palm on a metal plate. It glowed faintly, and a hidden door opened in the floor. Down there, she said. It drops into a stasis vault. The temperature's low, but the walls are reinforced. We can rest and plan. But I need to show you something before we move again. Something about me that you should have known earlier. Jaren climbed down after her, feeling the cold rise through the metal. The vault was dark and silent, with only a soft pulsing light in the distance. When he reached the bottom, she was already standing near a glowing orb built into the wall. She touched the orb, and an image appeared in the air. It showed her standing beside a row of alien soldiers. All of them had glowing eyes and sharp features. She was the smallest among them, but her eyes looked the most focused. That was me before I was sent to Earth, she said. I was part of a prototype group. Bioengineered from childhood, we weren't raised with names. We were tools, weapons. But I broke protocol during training. I asked for a name. I asked what it meant to be free. The image shifted. It showed her in chains, kneeling before a tall figure with no face. They said I was defective. They said asking questions was weakness. So they gave me one last task, to bond with a human and report their weaknesses. But I never planned to return. Jaren stepped closer, watching the light reflect off her face. Then why did you let the bond happen? She turned toward him. Because I wanted to know what it felt like to choose, not to be assigned. And when I saw you sleeping, calm and unaware, something inside me shifted. I saw peace. And I wanted that more than escape. He nodded slowly, eyes never leaving hers. So now what happens to us? She looked at him for a long moment. Now we stop running, we make them run. But we need help. And there's one being who owes me a favor, a dangerous one. But he controls the outer pass through the forbidden stars. Jaren gave a short breath. Sounds risky, she smirked. It's more than risky. He collects broken things, including people. But if we reach him, we can trade the one thing no one else has. Jaren raised an eyebrow. What's that? She stepped closer, eyes glowing bright. You, a human fully locked with a warrior class. They've never seen it done. And that makes you priceless. The stasis vault's silence was broken by the low hum of the platform rising. Jaren and the girl stood together as the hidden lift began to carry them upward. The old metal creaked and the temperature dropped again. They were about to leave the shadows and enter something far more dangerous. Above them, the city had shifted. The streets no longer buzzed with life. Sirens had grown less frequent. The silence wasn't peace. It was the quiet of a hunting ground. The girl's ears twitched as they neared the surface. She could already feel the scan pulses ahead of them. This collector, Jaren said while adjusting his gear. What's he like? She didn't answer at first. When she did, her voice was cold. He used to be a tactician. Now he trades in lost causes. He's unpredictable, selfish, but he keeps his word. If he gives us passage, we take it. If he doesn't, we fight our way out. Jaren nodded, trying not to show his unease. So we're offering him me? That's the plan? She turned to him. We're offering him a look, not ownership. He'll want more, but we hold the bond. Number one can break that. As long as you trust me, we stay in control. They exited into an old industrial zone surrounded by walls of scrap and collapsed towers. Smoke drifted from cracked vents, and light barely touched the streets. This was the edge of the controlled zones, where laws were thin and secrets lived freely. A thin line of lights marked the entrance to a tunnel choked by vines and steel. She led him through it without hesitation. Inside it smelled of oil, rust and old plasma burns. Strange symbols lined the walls, glowing faintly in purple hues that made Jaren's skin crawl. At the end of the tunnel, two guards stepped forward. They weren't like any soldiers Jaren had seen. One had 4 arms and no face. The other wore layers of mirrored plates that reflected everything, but cast no shadow. They didn't speak. They just stepped aside. He's expecting us, she whispered. The chamber they entered looked like a throne room made of junk. Screens flickered randomly. Bones and broken tech were piled in neat rows. In the center sat a thin figure wrapped in wires, cables hanging from the ceiling like roots. He was not human. He wasn't entirely alien either. He was something in between. His voice was soft, but it shook the walls. So my wandering shadow returns. I thought you were hunted. I thought you were dead. But now you bring me something rare. Something impossible. Jaren felt the pressure of the being's gaze without seeing eyes. It sank deep into his chest like a weight. He didn't move. He didn't speak. The girl stepped forward with steady steps. I need passage. I need your gate to the forbidden stars. I'm offering proof of the human bond. A successful lock-in. The collector made a sound like metal groaning. Impossible. No human has ever survived a full connection. Their minds break. Their emotions spill. Their will dissolves. But this one stands before me, fused and alive, strange, Rare, valuable. Jaren clenched his fists. I'm not for sale. The collector tilted his head. No, but you are seen. And what is seen can be judged. Come forward, bonded one. Show me your strength. Jaren stepped forward, pulse steady. His steps echoed like hammers in the silence. He reached the center of the chamber and met the collector's unseeing gaze without looking away. I didn't choose this, but I won't run from it. If you want something from us, speak it now. Or get out of our way. The collector laughed. It sounded like shattering glass. Brave, very brave. I like this one. But bravery must be tested. I give you passage. But only if you survive what's behind the second gate. One room, one trial, alone. Jaren looked at the girl. She nodded slowly. It's your choice. But I believe in you. He turned back to the collector. Open it. A door behind the throne slid open. Cold light spilled from within. Jaren stepped inside without hesitation. It closed behind him, sealing him into the test chamber with nothing but his breath and the weight of the unknown. The room was cold and silent, but not empty. Jaren stepped forward slowly, scanning the space. The walls were smooth and pulsing with faint white veins, like they were alive. In the center stood a single pillar with a glowing crystal hovering above it. The moment he stepped closer, the door behind him vanished. A voice echoed from nowhere. It wasn't the collector's voice. It was layered, strange, like several beings. Speaking at once, you carry something we've never seen. The fusion of instinct and feeling, human and warrior, life and weapon. Are you whole, or are you just pretending to be? Jaren didn't speak. He stepped toward the crystal and placed his hand just above it. It hummed in response, and light ran up his arm. The room darkened instantly. Images appeared around him. Not memories, but visions, moments from his life, his regrets, his fears, and worst of all, his doubts. He saw himself failing, letting her die, running away, begging for safety, breaking the bond, falling to fear. The images pulled at him, trying to shake his mind, but something deeper held him still. A heartbeat that wasn't just his. A presence inside him that kept him steady. He whispered one word. No. The illusions cracked and faded. The room trembled slightly. The crystal pulsed faster. The voice returned. You deny failure. You reject fear. But are you ready to give part of yourself to protect another? Will you burn so another may breathe? Jaren thought of her. The way she looked at him when she trusted him. The way she fought not for herself, but for freedom. He didn't need to speak this time. He closed his hand around the crystal. Pain shot through him, not physical, but deep. Like part of his soul was being pulled out. He didn't let go. His legs buckled, but he stayed up. The bond flared within him, and he saw her face in his mind. Not scared. Not angry, calm, waiting. The crystal turned black, then shattered in his hand. The pieces floated upward and vanished into the air. The walls around him shifted, and a path opened in front of him, a new door. The test was done. Jaren walked through it without looking back. Outside, the girl stood waiting. The collector's throne was dark now, empty. The guards had vanished. Only she remained. When she saw him, her eyes widened slightly. She stepped forward and touched his chest, feeling the rhythm beneath his skin. You did it, she said. Jaren gave a slow nod. I didn't do it alone. They didn't stay. The passage beyond the chamber opened into a glowing tunnel of light. A transport gate, ancient and powerful. The girl activated it with a touch of her hand. The light wrapped around them like warm mist, and the world shifted beneath their feet. They emerged on a mountaintop under an alien sky. Stars swirled in colors Jaren had never seen. Giant moons hung above the clouds. He took a deep breath and smiled. It was the first time he felt truly free since the bond began. She looked out over the horizon. This world is hidden. Few can reach it. Here we are not hunted. We are not marked. We are just two beings who survived something no one else could. He stepped beside her. What happens now? She glanced at him. Now we live. We build. We stay ready, because they may come again. But this time, they'll face something stronger than they ever expected. He reached out and took her hand. It was warm, steady, and real. The bond no longer felt like a burden. It was part of him now. A second heartbeat, a second will. And it no longer belonged to war or fear. It belonged to them. Together, they watched the sunrise on a world untouched by war. And for the first time, the girl smiled with no sadness behind it.